Okay, so where we stopped in the last week, sir? కర్ముకలు అక్కడ చూసుకుంటారేం సార్? We start to creating up to the virtual environment, correct, right? Right. Anyone have any questions on that before continue? Online, anyone have any questions on that to create a virtual environment?
Sir,
Yes,
yeah, how is Git different from cloud storage like Azure and other GCP?
that one is different topic, sir.
Yeah, that was the question.
I'm talking different topic and you're talking a different topic, sir. I'm asking like, did you have any question on it in the last session, which is discussed about the virtual environment, Python and all the stuff? So this one we can do later sessions, sir. This is a very big topic. Okay. Okay. So anyone have any question on that Python virtual environment? Everyone is clear? You guys can create by yourself? Sir, means sir.
Would it be possible to give the commands to create virtual environment? Do we have to follow along with you, or like last session I wanted to ask you that, but like you did not respond actually.
So in where, madam? Where did you ask it?
Like I just raised a hand actually online, so I even like asked, but you did not hear maybe, I don't know.
So then you messaged on the group now.
Okay, yeah, I will do it
Okay.
next time.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So other than any other questions? Okay. Okay, this is where we stopped in the last session, right? So we discussed about it, how to set up on the Windows and Mac, the virtual environment. We discussed about what is the advantages of the virtual environment on the Python and how it will be, how to activate also. We saw that by using these commands. Am I correct? And also we discussed about this requirements.txt file. What is the advantages of it? And to install that dependency libraries, we are going to be using the pip install minus R or dash. Sorry. So space requirements.txt file. Right. So these are the stuff we discussed in the last session. Let's discuss about what is the Flask, because we wanted to be create the application by using the Flask. Actually, there is a many types of micro frameworks in the market. So not only the Flask, we have a fast API is there, lot of stuff is there. So why the Flask means it's easier and then it is from a legacy already. So having an idea on the Flask, it's going to be help us while we are building a report or while we are developing a model, because we need to where we need to give the people to try to give an access what we builded or what we try to implement it either through browser or through APIs. then only the people can able to access over these any other platforms like TV, mobile, smartwatch, wherever they wanted, they can able to integrate it. So even nowadays, most of our electronic devices also going to connect it with internet. That's what we are calling as IoT, right? Internet of Things. Even a washing machine, ACs, we can control it from anywhere once it's connected to the internet. That's right. So means everywhere the APIs are communicating from somewhere else by using a server or middleware or a gateway is helping us to share our what we wanted the command to in the other side. And as well as we can able to get that feedback also, and both the sides like reverse we can request it and then at the same time we can get that response also. So that's the reason for now, because it's going to be very easier for you guys. That's how I'm choosing as a Flask. There is another framework called Fast API. Obviously, as the name how it is, the Fast API, it's a fast only. Compared with the Flask, it is a fast because the dependency libraries to build that framework is a less, means is a faster than the Flask. Flask is dependent so many other types of like dependency packages. Obviously, whenever in your application packages are increasing, your application size will be increased. Whenever your application size increases, time to execution will also increase. That's very common everywhere. So that's the reason here currently rather than fast API, because that's the API concepts are very heavy. So Flask is can build it either the web page or a Flask as an API also. Both we can do that. But with the fast API, it is do we can do that, but there we need to know that there is another template engine and all the stuff. So you don't need to require that is required for application developers and all the stuff. For you guys, the Flask is going to be very dead easy. So that's why I'm choosing here. So as I discussed the earlier, again, let me have it. Where user is going to be accessed through web browser that we are calling as a client. Either the request is going to be as HTTP request. Once is through the web server. Again, this server is nothing but another computer is a another computer. So from that, once is a request, it is going to come to the WSGI, and then Flask application is going to be run inside of this web server. So these WSGI and Flask is a part of your web server. The web server is going to be run this WSGI and Flask both. WSGI is going to be behave like a background service. Whenever the background service is enabled, this Flask application will going to be run 24 by 7. Right? When it's a shutdown, system shutdown scenario only, it is not going to be work. Remaining all the scenarios means when the system is on, automatically your background service will be enabled. Once it's enabled, your Flask application is also runs, right? That will be taken care of by the WSGI. So web server gateway interface. WSGI means web server gateway interface. So all these things is can handled by this thing. Obviously, the for web server we are going to be use the Nginx or Apache, or you can say Tomcat, whatever. So for now, let's consider we are going to be discuss about the Nginx. So now understood, right? To install that Flask, we are going to be use this pip itself. What we have pip space install space Flask. Obviously, pip is going to be help us to whatever it is published on PyPI. On PyPI, it is going to be installed, and then it is going to be help us to make download that packages and then run on our local, right? So that is the where it is going to be very useful. This is, we can say that Python community. Generally, people call it as Python community. Now, let's try to understand before going on to this, the framework word, libraries, and what is this. Let's get an idea about it. What is the library and what is the framework? This is the differentiation we need to know that. Otherwise, we are going to get a lot of confusion on this. Which one is a library? Which one is the framework? Right? So let's try to understand. What is the definition of the library? It can be reusable code written by the another person. Obviously, someone is going to be written. We are going to be used in our application or in the same application or different application. We can able to do that to solve a common problems. To solve a common problems. Best example, login functionality. Best example is login functionality. So that's we call them as authentication. So for most of this application, login functionality is a common, right? So once you develop that login functionality in one application, that we can able to reuse it in another application until unless it is changed the parameters, right? So some maybe use the email, someone may use the mobile number, some may use the both, some may use the username, or some maybe use this login with the Google or Facebook. So such a kind of a functionalities. When you have it in a one common module or a library that can be reusable for any another account also means another application also we can able to do this. This is going to be like an additional module here is going to be like a additional module. When you're coming into the framework, this is the same thing. Resolve, right? Reusable code written by another developer to solve the common problems, a special kind of a library. This is the same. Both are the same here. End of the day, the framework is also available in PyPI. Library is also available in PyPI. Both are like a package. It's not a difference. But only the difference is library is going to be very limited as a module. As a module. Framework is going to be solve so many things. That's how we are calling as a special kind of a library. Special kind of a library where it's going to be help us to process our data, especially that request and response. And when is a request is came, which function it has to be, routing system, and predefined functions, everything available on this framework, right? So it's not only here in the library, mostly we are going to be write only the functions, but here we are going to be define that rules and regulation, how you need to write that extension of your source code. It is not going to be module, it is going to be a base layer. It's going to be a base layer for your application. On top of it, you are going to be add your extra code that is going to be executed again with that base layer itself is going to be behave like a friend controller, behave like a friend controller. When the request will come, this friend controller will understand it and then pass that request to whatever you added extra code to that it will be pass it, and then there it is going to be try to evaluate it. Once is evaluated, what is the response is generated, again it is going to be written back either as a JSON, SOAP or XML or any another format or HTML. It is going to be written back into the client. But here the libraries are not like that. Libraries are going to be created or solve a particular module on your application. But frameworks is going to be like your base layer. Is going to be like a base layer. So flow of the application is going to be very simple. Code calls the libraries, obviously. The framework calls the code. As I said, right, there's a base layer. It is going to behave like a friend controller. So whenever the request will come, your base layer is going to take that request to whatever you return the code. So means the frameworks is going to cause the code here. So similarly, when your library, code is going to call the library. Hope you guys understand. Example, jQuery, React, all are comes under libraries. When you're coming into the frameworks, Angular, Django, Express, Rails, Spring, Vue, all are comes under as frameworks. right? So in this, not only specific to one language, it's have like different languages it's mentioned, just to give an idea about it, how it will be. Anyone have any questions on this? The library and framework? That is a database man. No questions? Okay. That is not required, man. Already deprecated, man. Deprecate. No one is using in the market. Only everyone is using the JSON. JSON. JSON, you guys are already known. I don't need to tell. It's a dictionary. Key and value. So now let's get an idea about it. What is an API? So this is the most important because why we choose the Flask to build an API, correct, right? So now what is the API we need to know about it, correct? So let's try to understand. These are end of users. Let's say there is a number of users. Try to hit it by using their laptop, mobile devices. The request will reach to the API, and API will be sent it to this connected with the web server and databases and everything. It is going to be comes here. But what is mean by exactly application programming interface? That's what the API we are calling here. This API, what is going to do to us, right? What is going to do for us? With this, what we can achieve it here. What is going to do for us? It's going to be,
Control hold the process.
no, it's going to be behave like a router. Behave like a router. Whatever this URL, whatever we are saying that unify, sorry, yeah, resource locator, whatever we have a URL, in this the word is locator. This locator is going to do by the API. So where let's say I send like example.com slash login or example.com slash register. When I say like this, there's a two different pages we are going to be received or the same. It's going to receive two different pages or same page, different pages. So now here, which one is going to be helping us to get this two different pages? Huh? Yes, sir. While addressing the slash, but where it is defined, to log in, you need to load the login page. Correct, right? Somewhere else we need to return, right? Right? So that where it is going to be performed by the API. It's going to behave like an interface. It's going to give us to interface to communicate with the help of routers and then tell us which function it has to be executed at the time of when you call this login or routing. So that's how the APIs are is very powerful. Even on your browser, whatever you're calling that URL is also an API, but that is what type of API means get API. We have different types of HTTP methods. In this, get is one of it, which is going to be directly accessed by using your browser URL, where you can enter automatically the request will send as a get, and then it will be processed and then understand by this a routing system, API routing or interface system is going to be understand it, which function it has to be written or which content it has to be written, that is going to be decided. So that is also will going to be seen it when you're using the Flask. So please understand API is I can say there's a communication programming interface. So with this, from a client to server or an application, we can able to tell which content we wanted or which functionality we wanted to be. It has to give it to us. We can able to tell via URL, right? So there is in the API, we have a REST API, is a different names are there, different types are there. So because HTTP is a stateless, it's not a stateful request. Means if the one request has been completed, it is not going to be maintained his historical request informations. That's how we call them as stateless. All the HTTP requests are stateless requests. So in this scenario, to make that is a state, we are going to be use this REST. That's a different terminology and different design pattern. We are going to be used on the API side to maintain that state or a session. So a best example, you guys once logged in on the Instagram, it is not going to ask you the login again. Am I correct? Until unless you guys are click on the logout. Means it's maintaining your session or a state. It is going to be maintain your session until unless you decided to log out. So in such scenarios, we are going to be use the REST APIs. So for now, let's say I'm not building or I'm not giving an idea about it. What is a REST APIs now? I'm just focusing on what is the APIs on this session. In this API, we are going to be built with the help of Flask. Right? So now let's go to this. The Flask website. This is the URL, guys. Flask.paletteprojects.com. So this is the one you can say that where if you find out all your documentation about this Flask, it's easier. Yeah, this one I'm sharing on the chat. Who wanted, you guys can take it. So here you can see this, they given that there is a user's guide how you need to be use this framework, not a library. So because you may say that again, if you use the paper is not going to be library. So that's why I given the differentiation between the library and framework, right? So in this framework, how we need to use it, how we need to call it, it's a pure documentation is available in this website. There's an official documentation and the current version, obviously it is the 3.1.1. Now, let's try to understand. We know how to install this Flask, a very minimal application. What they are saying, let's try to understand here. It's very simple. They are saying like first import the Flask and then initiate the Flask library or framework or a class. You can say that. So this is a Flask class, right? So from Flask, import Flask. Flask is going to be as a class. In a class, once is a initiate means initialize, it's going to be assigned to this one variable object. That object is going to be like app. Any name, it can be any name. And this underscore underscore name underscore underscore, this is a file, current file name. Automatically, this is a global variable on the Python. Automatically, it will take that in which file it is running, it's going to take it. Means the path, it is where this file is located. It is going to be understand to run a HTTP server. Now, once it is done, we are going to be use the decoratives, right? Decoratives is nothing but where it is going to be help us to, this is we call them as decoratives. So these are decoratives are going to be help us to or add it to the functions. So this is an extension of the functionality for a user defined functions. Let's say whenever this request, the router, right? When the request is comes as a slash, this function is going to be execute called hello world. When this function executed, you can return that either HTML or JSON or a normal text, whatever you can return, it is going to be received by the browser. See, all these things we don't need to do just by writing this. How many number of lines? 5 lines. If you write just a 5 lines, you're done with means you started creating this a small web application here, right? So here, that's what the first we imported the Flask class. It's going to be create the instance of this class, and it will be our WSGI application. So the name is a convenient shortcut for this to appropriate for most use cases. This is like applications modules are package where it is going to be located on that. So we then like use this root. This is a decorator I said. Tells this Flask what URL should be trigger our function. This function, root function, is going to be tell us to that like to the app when the URL from the URL, right? The path, which path is has been come when this function has to be called it is going to be decided by this root, right? And obviously we are returning that HTML. Now let's try to implement here how I'm doing. Let's watch it here. I'm taking one sample here, everything from a scratch. Right, so I created a folder that's called Python test. So as it say, let's try to create that. First one is requirements.txt, and we required a folder called src, and inside it we are going to be create a file called index.py. And let's go there under this requirements.txt, which file we require? La. That's right. Now let's take it this terminal, and let's try to see here. 1 second. Yes. Right. So let's create this in this project, the virtual environment. So again, I'm telling I'm doing on the Mac laptop. It is a different for Windows. So here how I'm doing Python 3 minus M VENV. So here PT, I'm giving that my virtual environment name. But as a suggestion, if you give this virtual environment name with the dot, it is not going to be considered. So that's a I'm adding here. Automatically it will be ignored for repositories. When you add it like a git ignore and all the stuff, it will be helpful. Good. Now let's activate that virtual environment. Source dot pt slash bin slash activate. So once it's done, see here, my environment has been activated. Right. So now let's try to test it out. What are those we have available here? So we have only the pip. We only have the pip. So when we don't wanted this virtual environment, say we can able to delete it, right? So to before deleting, we need to do this deactivate and simply select that folder, right click on it and delete it. Automatically, this virtual environment is going to be deleted here, right? So now come back again. Let's try to activate source dot pt slash bin slash activate. Right. So now as it's saying that to install that requirements, right? So let's try to use this pip install dash So requirements.txt. Now it looks like all this is installed. Let's verify it. All are added or not by using this pip list. So previously we have only the pip. Now we can see this just by adding the flask, whatever the dependence is like a blinker, click, flask, it's dangerous, Jinja 2 is a template engine, right? So markup save and WebZero. So all these stuff is added automatically to that environment, virtual environment. It is added. Successfully, it is added. Now, let's focus on it by writing on the code on index.py. So what is the first one? From, from class, import class to class. Now, let's try to create an instance for that class by going or giving any one variable. So app is equals to plus, and so these are all the global variables just given this underscore underscore name. Is it visible, right? Right. So underscore underscore name here. Obviously, if you wanted, we can able to be print out this app. Let me try to show you what it is come. If you guys are print this app variable and then try to execute here, when we are executing, let's say this Python dot src and index.py, let's observe it's saying that the type, it is trying to give me that the Flask instance, right? So this is a Flask instance object, right? So if you wanted to be, if you use the VS Code, obviously you can able to get it, but here it's difficult until unless you are mapped that virtual environment, only it is auto populate that it will give you, but for now it's okay. So if you use this print, you can able to see this, what type of an object here it is created. Obviously we can able to see this. Now, next thing is what we need to do, create a home page. Try to create a home page here saying that I'm defining that home page with the help of a function. We're saying that return. This is a home page. This is a home page. So obviously to call this function when you're to the URL, obviously we need to be mapped to the router, right? To interface to that programming interface, we need to map it. That is possible with the help of decorator called root. It's going to say that when it's a user is trying to be hit it, right, with the slash means automatically this function is going to be triggered. So now let's try to run that. The service of the Flask automatically, it's going to be create the HTTP server here, app.run, and that's it. Now let's try to run this, our file directly. See here, you can clearly observe it is not stop the service. The service has been started on a port number called, what is the port number? 5000. The port number is going to be 5000. And then the protocol is HTTP, and then IP address or a domain name here going to be 127.0.0.1 or local host. If you say this host name or domain name is going to be local host in operating system side is mapped with IP address called 127.0.0.1. This is a predefined on the operating system. We don't need to worry about it. Local host means it's trying to be called, the IP address is 127.0.0. So let's try to be click on this by using control, and then see here it started running my web page saying that this is a home page. Right, sir, you can tell me what is it, sir? You said slash, you given the root, why it is coming. Let try to show me and give an understanding about it, how the URL paths is going to be happens. Let's observe here. Here, the request whenever this, the URL is after the 5000, what is that? Slash. Slash. That's we call them as index URL, or you can say that is can be a friend URL, whatever. It is going to be as to get. The request is going to as a get, and then remote address is going to be my local host with the 5000. This is a common for all the computers which is running locally. Any local computer, the IP address is going to be 127.0.0.1. Right? That is what with the port number is 5000. Clear, sir? Understood? Okay. So now let's try to play with these URLs. Let's try to play with this URLs. So whatever we are seeing here, let's create this another page called login page and say this is a login page, and then URL is going to be slash login. And now let's see, is it refreshed or not? Slash login, it's going to say that not found. Because my file changes is not reflected on my HTTP service, which is running on that. So then what I need to do? Just stop the existing service by using the control C, and then rerun my service, means rerun the file again, and then observe it here, it started working now. When the URL is not founded, obviously we just now saw that error is 404. Let me try to show you. Let's say now register, and see this is saying that not found. How the browser or a server is able to tell this is a not found? Because the HTTP status is given as 404. So there's an error is came. You guys can see on the browser console, it's clearly saying that this page or this functionality has not been defined, or maybe it's defined, or maybe some reasons it cannot able to trigger that function. Trigger that function. So that may be a lot of issues. So that's a different way. But just giving an idea about it, if you say this 404, this I can say from a front end side, the functionality is not available. Means the function is not defined for register. For a routing system register, there is no function. That's what you are trying to tell me. Got it, sir? So now let's try to play the same thing with the same routing. Let's try to keep here as a login and here also login. The both functions have a same routing. Now, which function is going to be triggered? Home page or login page? Let's try to observe by restarting the service. Which ones are login? Home page. Why, sir? When you try to look on this, the sequence of your source code, any programming languages always from top to bottom only. So whenever it is identify the root, right, it's going to be stop it. It is not going to look for another root which is defined with the another function. So if you guys are observed very clearly in this, which one is defined first? Home is first. Now let's try to shift this one. Now let's restart again. What is going to happen? Now this login page is changed. So hope you guys are understand when you are trying to be writing your roots, which one is comes first or defined on your source code, that function only will execute. You cannot able to overwrite it. If you wanted to be override this existing routing, you need to define on top of that above root, not after that. Not after that. Understood, guys? Any questions up to here? No questions? All right.
Can we able to create both the pages,
Which both the pages?
like the login page and the home page?
Previously, that one only it is there, right?
I mean, like now, now it is able to do only like the first in the sequence, right?
Because both have the same roots.
Ah, okay.
Both have a same roots. Previous it was not like this, right? Previously it was like this.
Okay.
So in this scenario, we can able to do both. This is a home page. This is a
Login page.
login
Okay.
page. Understood? Clear? Anyone have any doubts on this? Clear? Okay, good. So now let's have this another the same way. Try to understand this, defining the same function name. Is it works or not? So let's say here, I'm keeping this define login here also, define login. Is it correct actually? Can we define in a one py file have the same function name? Huh? Sorry. Let's try to see this. What is saying that? It's written that a big error. It's saying that what's a view function mapping is overwriting on existing endpoint function called login. It's throwing the error. Means it's very simple. You cannot be able to use the same function name because lot of people do the mistakes here itself. Right? So giving the name of definition. It should not have the same name. Right? It can be either you need to be understand what is the context. Accordingly, you need to give it as by giving here that what is the name. Let's say home means home, login means login. Understood? So this is a very minimal application we are trying to be create with the help of Flask here. Right? So let's see this another here. When you go to this documentation, what they are saying, and then whatever this 40.00, we can able to use it on the production. And if you want it to be run in the debug mode, we can able to do that very easily by passing as dash dash debug, or because here itself we can pass it as debug is equals to true. And now let's see here. It is going to be change little difference when they have an error. Right? So here we can able to see this. Correct. Whenever I modify this is a login page. Here people create their own user accounts. Now, let's see. I don't need to be, when I say this debug true, I don't need to stop the service and then restart. That right? What is happening automatically? Whenever I modify the code on this, auto refreshes happen. Auto refresh. When you guys are working, like when you guys are trying to be working here, the better way to do this, especially in the development on your local, try to maintain that debug is equals to true. Every time whenever you modify that code, you don't need to be called, means stop it and restart. So that you don't need to do that. Understood? No? Okay. So now let's go back into this, our documentation. That's what all these things we can able to use this a variable based rules. This is a very interesting one. Variable based rules, let's say passing a dynamic variables on the URL. Let's observe this Amazon.in. If I try to click on any one of it here, let's say I click on this Sri Krishna here. So let's observe here, sorry, there's a product detail. Let's please observe here, everyone. Right. So let's observe here. This is the product ID of these Amazon. This is the product ID of the Amazon. Here, let's observe Amazon.in. This is a domain name. And after that, what they said? Product title, the slug URL. We call it here in the SEO, right? In the digital marketing side, people call this one is a slug URL. SEO means search engine optimization. When the people try to search with this, it is going to come on the top on the URL. So for that, you guys can see this. This is a like a product title or product slug. It's not a title, it's a product slug. It's going to be unique. And after that, DP slash, it is going to be the product ID. Let's observe the same thing is happening for the remaining URLs, means remaining products are not. So this is very important because how the people are going to be identify that accordingly fetch that respective item information and then show it or fit it into that template. Fit it to that template, because why the word is came is a template, because in this place for another product it is going to replace that product image. In this place it's going to be replace this other product title. The layout is not going to be changes, it's same, it's going to be same. Let's observe. Let's take this another one. Right. The same thing. Let's try to observe here. Right. So this is the product slug URL. After that, DP. And after that, what we have? Product ID. Means the people are trying to be send an information via URL to make sure what the people are asking. What the people are asking. Then only it is trying to be get that information. These things we are going to call them as in the programming world is unique URLs. That is a technically in the application side, people going to be handled with the help of variables. With the help of variables. So if you guys are observed here, let's see here, user slash username. There's a less than, greater than. Right? In the URL, they mention as less than and greater than, means when you are calling, you can pass any customized value here. Means user slash Suresh, user slash Veeru, user slash Rahul, user slash something. Whatever you can pass, this URL will going to be triggered the show user profile information. Show user profile information. Similarly, not only for this, we can able to see for post slash post ID. But here, trying to expecting the value should be integer. The value, whichever is going to become through the URL as a variable, it is going to be converted as a integer. So that's how that value, it's going to be converted here, or we're going to be added that within the less than, greater than, whichever we given as an argument to that function, like show post. Show post function is going to have a post underscore ID. So this ID is going to be contains that URL variable ID. Variable ID. The same thing here, path slash subpath. Let's go there and now test it out how these are going to be work in our code. Right? So let's observe. Same thing like user slash user name, and then say this, and here we can go into call this user profile and username. We can able to say this is how to concat here. This is a how to concatenation plus plus and plus. Okay, already space is there, right? User name. Now the server side is also refreshed because it's already added this debug is true here. Now let's go there and now test it out in our side by saying that user slash v. Now what is saying is a v, and I can pass any value here. This is the Cedlearn. Right? So now see how I'm dynamically taking that one value or making this a unique URLs by using this routing variables. Routing variables, correct, sir? These are become a variables for that block, means that function. Function is a block, right? A particular block that's going to be limited to that scope. That variable is going to be used to that particular scope as a local variable. Correct, right? These arguments, what we call them? This argument is going to be local variable for the user profile. Correct now? No? Let's say if I define the same thing in the top, what is going to happen? That becomes the global variable for this function. Correct now? So that's what arguments is always like a local variables to that particular function. Right? So this is a dynamic values variables by passing the routing variables. Understood, guys? We can pass any value here, sir. There is no like this is anything. This is a 1, 2, 3 or anything. Understood? Any questions? That much easy, huh, Flasker? First time I'm getting like jealous on you. Okay? Understood? No questions? Okay, guys. If you guys does not have it, what I need to do? Okay, now we understand about what is the how we can pass the variables here. There's a converter types. Let's try to observe. We have a string is there. We have an integer there. We have a float is there. We have a path is there. We have a UUID is there. What is that? UUID. UUID is a similar like your Amazon coupon code. Anyone knows about Amazon coupon code with the alphanumeric with the dash? right? It is going to have that kind of a format. It is going to be have it. And as well as we can able to redirect this here, like with the help of slash. This is a redirection behavior we are going to call them, right? So these are two rules here. You can able to see this by using either trailing slashes. So that is also you guys can look on that. And here we can able to find out that for each one, like what are the functions we have it with the help of URL for URL for we can able to get it like slash login next. Like this, we can able to see what it is going to be contains even as a query params. Query params in the URL of the question mark. The question mark which is going to be passed on the URL, those things we are going to call them as query parameters. Query parameters, here we can able to pass the values as key and value with the help of equal. Let me try to show you. Here you guys can see, right? After the question mark, what is said that PD underscore RD underscore W is equals to 7. I can pass the multiple query params here with the help of ampersand. With the help of ampersand. Correct, right? With the help of ampersand, we can able to see this. We can able to pass multiple. Let me try to show you by debugging that little bit for you guys. Hope everyone can see my screen here. Let's say window dot location dot. Let's say if I say here, we can able to understand in this as a search parameters. What are the things right after the question mark? Here it is saying that PDRDW content ID. Correct, right? So like this, we can able to see very clearly how this is going to be works. So this information also we can able to gather on the Flask side. Not only by using the URL variables, you can able to be pass the data with the help of query params. Means on the application side, it is going to be receive that, understand the information, accordingly try to give some different type of it. Let's say best example, go to try to search any data here. So let's say what we can search it. Obviously, tell me one name. Huh? Ah, nice search. It is. So now let's here whatever we have it here. See, and there is a pagination. Correct, right? I'm in the page 1. Now, if I go to the page 2, it sends us a reference where I am. Let's say here, it is telling me to the server, I need this page 2 content. I need the page 2 content. Automatically, what happened? The results are changed. On page 1 is a different products. Page 2 are the different products, right? No? There's a 3 people had a doubt. Okay, let me click on the page 3 or else directly hit here from this. By modifying the page 3, it is a changed. Not understood? Shapa. మీ ఫోకస్ అక్కడ ఉందా సార్ నా ఫోకస్ నేనేదో యూఆర్ఎల్ మీద పెట్టుకుంటే నువ్వేమో కలెక్షన్ బాగాలేదంటే దానికి నేనేం చేసేలేను సార్ ఓకే సార్ ఎంత ఎంత పైసలు ఉన్నాయి సార్ ఓకేనా సార్ ఇది కూడా బాలే Okay, sir. So got it right. See here, we are telling to the server whenever we are requesting or we are passing the information, either by using the URL variables or else query parameters. Query parameters. Understood, right? So this way, there's a communication is going to be data transmission or data what we wanted, we can able to send it on the get request. What is that? Get request. But when you have a form, let's say a login, registration form, any filling forms, wherever you have it, that is going to be the post request. That is a post request, because in the get data we can only pass this any information via URL. The URL have going to be limitation. The size of the URL have a limitation, obviously, because the servers or the proxy servers can't able to handle if URL length is very big. So that's how we cannot able to pass much information via the get request or URL variables, or I can say query parents. We cannot pass it. A small information only we can able to be pass it there. When you have a very big information, big data, when we are trying to be pass it there, we are going to be use the post request. We are going to be use which one? Post request. In the post request, the data is going to be passed as a payload. We call them as payload. On the body, it is going to be transmit over the internet, and then it is going to be pass it there. So that also we can able to convert this function or this routing is a post request or serve only the get. For now, it is trying to be, we doesn't mention which method it is going to be served, but that's how it is going to be considered. All these URLs works for get request. But once I mention these as a post request, let's see here. By using the comma, I'm going to be, sorry, sir. Comma, I'm going to say methods in the brackets, I'm going to say post request. Means previously what is happened for user profile, we given as user slash username directly on the browser, it worked. Now let's go back here. Where is that? Now start like trigger. 1 second. Now start like a hit. It is saying that method not allowed. This is not 404. This is a 405. The error is 405. It is going to tell us already the routing URL has been defined. It's available. The server is telling to us it is there, but the request method, it is not from your browser URL. It is like a post URL. It is like a post URL. That's what we call them in the browser side, Ajax request. Ajax request. So it is going to be run in the background when you click on a button. When you click on a button, we can able to send the data in the form of payload. That we can able to test it out by using a postman. So let's try to bring it. You guys can download it by going there. Postman. This is the most world leading API platform testing tool. So you guys can easily download it. For this, you don't require to pay any money. It's a free tool. So now let's open this postman here. Let's have a test on here, right? So look, what is the URL? And let's say this is a post request, and try to send, and we can able to see the response. We can able to see the response very clearly. Means here, rather than sending the data in this on the URL, we can able to send it by using this body. In the body, you can able to send as a form data, or you can able to send as a JSON data also, like this. I can able to send some information saying that, let's say test, and let's say 200, and this data I can able to send it to this in a secure way. It is going to be send it and then try to get what is the response I wanted. Clear, sir? Either I can able to send it as a text, I can able to send it as HTML, I can able to send it as XML, JavaScript, or I can able to send it as a form also. That is the people are going to be written when you click on the button on a form called submit, save, proceed. There is a functions people are going to be convert that request into post request and send the server and then do that some process and then return back says that your account is created successfully or you're going to be send an OTP, you're going to get a OTP. So all these things is going to be transferred or shared it via post request only. Here HTTP methods we have last time in the last session also I mentioned we have a put, patch, delete, head options. All our thing is not needed. Just try to understand get, post, put and delete. These four things is try to understand. Get means try to get the data from the server and then post means try to send the data from a client to the server with that try to create the data, try to create the data. That is the post request. Put request means data is already received from the server that if you want it to be modified, that means existing content if you want it to be modified, we are going to be use the put request. Put request and delete means obviously whatever the existing data if you want it to be removed on the database side using via the APIs means the server side first will send it to the API will trigger to the database, it will try to delete the content. So for this generally we call these things as a CRUD. We call them as CRUD. CRUD means C means create. For this create, people are going to be use the post, read. Here, people are going to be use the get, update. People are going to be use the put, and for delete, people are going to be use the delete. Right. So these are the methods are helping or very helpful while we are passing the data between or communication between this client to the server. Understood, sir? Any doubts?
Sir, how is like in Python code how does it store the data that we just sent?
That we need to connect the database side. I'll tell you, sir. It's
Yeah.
not something.
Can you explain post once again? Oh, like like the description, basically.
Okay. So the post is going to be helpful to share the content from client to the server. Client to the server. Client here can be a browser, mobile app, your TV, or your smartwatch, whatever. The data has to be send it from your client to the server that we can able to share it via post request.
Okay.
That data generally post request use it to create that whatever the shared data to the server is going to be process this data and save it on the database side. That is the logic people going to be write it. Got it, madam?
Yes.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Understood, sir? Okay, I'm stopping now here. So I'm not yet completed yet. So this is just giving this a flask about what is the flask and how to create an application, just basics with it. And the next week we can continue again on the Saturday and finish this database, how to connect this flask with the database and then database to how can we use it like a small application. I'm going to be bring it either some data analyst project or data science project, how we can able to integrate that and then let's close it. And publish it means deploy it. Deploy means copy from your local computer to another computer, which is a remote computer. The remote computer from any data center. That can be a cloud, that can be a dedicated server, that can be shared hosting, or that can be a VPS. Any server we are going to be deployed, and then we can try to access via the domain name. Clear? So my request is, before coming on this next session, means on next Saturday, you should able to try this Flask on your local computers and then try to create the URLs, understand that. Then it is going to be very helpful when you're going to the little advanced, especially to connect the databases. To connect the databases and then try to create this a analytical report or try to integrate with the data science model. Got it, sir? So that we can see on this next week. Clear? Thank you, guys.